Can you be Minecraft when air is replaced with bedrock? Minecraft is a game of mining and crafting. That means you need a world filled with blocks to mine so that you can craft with them. Makes sense. And to get to these blocks you would need some intangible blocks. You might even call them air blocks. And they do play a big part in mine and craft, because if everything was filled with blocks, there would be no way for players to get to blocks to mine and craft them. So what if you changed that? No one ever asked. And on top of that, what if you not just replace them with any block, but a sturdy one, something that would not budge, no matter how we hit it? That would be quite a shame, as then we would no longer be able to see how our world looks like. All would just turn into a sea of bedrock. So, let's do that. But what does that even mean in Minecraft terms? I think we need some ground explanation to what we will do. There are two ways of interpreting turning air to bedrock. One would mean literally anything that isn't a block is now bedrock. And with some mods that would be possible. Cubic Chunks is a mod that allows world generation to go infinitely in every direction. Otherwise, there is a build height limit, and you already know what that means. No blocks can be placed above or below it. It would include our extremely high on carbon air. So, which is it? No time for thinking, the answer is number 2. If literally every air block is replaced with bedrock, there would be no spawning, or spawning inside of a block, which would lead to suffocation deaths. We now have decided on how we go about with our air-phobic mission. But what can we actually do now that everything is bedrock? Bedrock is unbreakable after all. In addition, is it a semi-transparent block, and those prevent spawning of mobs of any kind. That would mean we're stuck, assuming we would spawn on top of this bedrock floor. There would be no way of getting to the part of the world that we are interested in. Or would there? Now, not many things are all that big. Trees, they only grow up to 30 blocks. That's a lot, considering the jump height is 1.5 blocks. But like, the world is a tiny bit larger than that, so how about structures? There are many, but none of them go any higher than jungle trees. That means everything is helpless. There just isn't a way of entrance. If there just were a way for the ground to go all the way up to the height limit, if just one singular block of floor would reach this bedrock heaven, then we could go on an extremely arduous and not fun adventure. Let's consider this. A mountain just happened to be a bit larger, and the floor of the ground is just high enough, so that a singular block can now play the world's largest Where's Waldo. In that case, all we would need is to find the needle in the haystack, with the needle being a grey cube, and the haystack being an infinitely large plane of slightly darker cubes. It goes without saying that I would waste a lot of my life finding this one block. So here it is, in survival, the one thing that stopped us from answering if we can beat Minecraft if air is replaced with bedrock. What's next? The time for punching. A lot of punching. It takes 7.5 seconds to break a singular block of stone by hand, and we have to dig down this way all the way from height limit to ground height. That's about 200 blocks of stone mined by hand. That's one episode of Devilish a part-timer worth of time to get down there. In the case that you know how deep you need to go, as otherwise you would need to break diagonally along the bedrock ceiling, which about triples the amount of blocks you need to break. I did not do that. If you enjoy doing this task that needs your attention for 90 minutes, that is nothing but holding the left mouse button and sometimes moving your mouse up and down, go ahead, no one is stopping you. For me, I looked beforehand up where I need to go, as to not triple the time it takes. This includes ground height, but also later on nether fortresses, warped forests and strongholds, but nothing more. What we now need is some tools, and for that we need wood. In a normal playthrough, that would be as easy as to look to your left and hit a tree. There is no tree to your left in this world, or to your right, or before you or behind you. They are above you. Luckily, do trees grow on dirt, which is far more reasonable with its by-hand breaking times. So, With that, it is time for one thing and one thing only from now until we find a tree. Behold, a poppy! Look, what is that behind the poppy? It's a tree! So now about this one. I was thinking of just hiding this, but it barely affects anything and didn't help finding this tree. In fact, it made things harder. If you didn't know, there are two types of air in Minecraft. Air, and the totally not the same, totally original cave air. I don't know what happened, if this is a mysterious third type I didn't know of, as I did at least try to replace all air and cave air with Bedrock, but let's just pretend there is no hole here. In fact, there was never any talk of a hole in the Bedrock. Now that we have gotten our wood, it's time for tools, but before that, saplings. In normal cases you could just plot them right down where you got them and be done, but there's one key ingredient missing in this world for that. As if you didn't see it, but it would be really hard to see something that isn't there, we have no light. Just theoretically, there's one thing you're blocking this world with daylight that we could use to grow some trees. But instead we could also just seek out coal, like the one handily being right here, the one we passed over when in search of a way to touch grass. This makes torches. Torches make light, and all trees need to grow is light and space, which means we have infinite wood. And all of that in just 40 minutes, to get where you would be the second you create a new world. I have the feeling this is not going to break any speedrun records. By the way, water. Once again, one of those holes I didn't patch, but when digging along the surface, you would at some point reach a river, so this just saved me time I could use to do other things, like sleep or having a life, but most importantly sleep. I also searched more trees, to not have to wait for trees to grow for 30 minutes. Yeah, finding them manually is way faster. After that, I did use this hole. This area I dug out that happened to have water at the bottom, to create a base. And dig out even more down here so that I can plant trees and they have enough space to grow, while I do other stuff. Wood never became an issue in this, but if you were to run out of it, you would need to once again dig by hand until you find a tree. Tree farm it is. You know what time it is now. Strip mine time. Even when you can make portals with lava burning wood, you might not have realized it by now. But there is no lava. We need to strip mine for literally everything, including lava in this world. Treesold! I will find my report later. And we actually found iron. And people say it's hard to find iron. Simply create an entire world of bedrock, dig straight down for one Devilish a part-timer episode and seek out wood for another one, and then strip mine your way to iron. All it took was 1 hour. Super easy stuff. What I can now also mention is that we actually absolutely need iron. This is not it makes things easier, but unless we are lucky, which is a bad thing to plan for, is iron 100% needed. But we'll get to that when we get to that. And what do I hear in the background? You heard correctly. More Mineshaft. Not that it's gonna help us find anything, as a chest would take too much time for the reward it gives. I thought it to be funny of mining this gold with the wrong tool to trigger some people. I have the feeling I wouldn't have mentioned this were not for some special reason that would bite me in the ass later down the line. This was not scripted, by the way. I just happened to dig up here, purposefully mining redstone with the wrong tool of course, to beeline directly at a diamond vein. And this is why we need iron, as we kept the letter need diamonds. But that's for future me to explain why. Funnily enough, do we still need lava, so the strip mine continues. And if everyone ever says to you to reconsider what you are doing and maybe seek a different way to achieve your goals, fuck those people. Right here I made a right turn while digging. There was no reason for it, no rhyme or purpose behind that action. I just felt like it. Well yeah, I was one block away from a lava lake. Always keep doing what you're doing, regardless of how much you and others think it is wasteful, as the salvation bringing lava lake could be right behind that one block they said you shouldn't mine. I did go back there later and mined that block to find the lava lake. So now we have everything we need to go into the Nether. But before I show you what happens, we should think about what will happen when we enter the Nether. The Nether, just as the overworld, is filled with bedrock. At any place where there isn't something else. What does that mean for entering it? But first of all, we need to search some food. Just some convenience, but definitely worth it for being able to run. This should be the same as finding trees. Just dig along the bedrock ceiling until you find grass, break it and then get seeds. Well, the difference is that grass doesn't have a 100% drop rate. So you need to find lots of grass. Ultimately, I did find seeds. Used the water that I conveniently found when digging out an underground lake-shaped hole that definitely wasn't there on its own. Channeled my power over time and definitely did not increase tick speed rate, as I would never cheat, and made some bread. Back to a regular scheduled program. This is what would normally happen when entering the Nether. You make a portal, you go through it, and bam, a lot of red. But you see those blocks right in front of you, these despicable, disgusting blocks that permeate the entire Nether. This is how our Nether will look like. The portal spawns, replaces some of the bedrock, and we are now trapped inside a 2v2t style portal trap. If you are lucky, the portal will spawn right next to a wall, and you can just turn around and dig that way, but most likely that won't happen. And if you think this is why we need a diamond, you are wrong, but also you are right. Half score for that one. You can break obsidian with anything. In fact, I forgot to put a diamond pick inside my hotbar before entering. This gave me half a heart attack when realizing that you can't open your inventory, or even chat for that matter, to go into emergency creative mode. I thought I was stuck because I couldn't mine the obsidian without diamond pick when the screen is shaking. No idea why I thought that, as it still would take a considerable amount of time with diamond pick. Definitely longer than it takes for the screen to go full sicko mode. But alas, I calmed down and mined away, and after 41 seconds of mining, did I get out. The real reason why we now need a diamond pick is what comes after. As we head to destroy the Nether portal, do we need to make a new one which needs obsidian in our inventory, as placing lava next to water isn't a trick that's going to work in the Nether. What only came right now to me is that pickling buttering can get you obsidian, so I guess diamonds aren't essential for this. But still, it allows you to easily reposition the entire Nether portal down into the non-air infected netherrack. And considering that until you get obsidian, you could not leave the Nether anymore, a diamond pick is probably recommended. All of that being said and done, what we now need to do in the Nether is straightforward. Cheat to find a Nether fortress. Be extremely skilled to know exactly where a Nether fortress is when analyzing the floor bedrock you saw when digging for diamonds, and lava to figure out the seed and then in your head calculate where Nether fortresses would be. Or like a monkey just strip mine for it. Which, I might add, isn't fun at all. With the Nether being filled with large empty spaces that now are giant blobs of bedrock, you would need to dig around. And then either hope that the fortress goes inside a wall, or otherwise seek at the floor of these bedrock blobs with the lava lake above you for the pillars of the fortress that go all the way down to the bottom of the lava lake the fortress stands in. To then dig up these pillars that are, by the way, thick enough that you don't need to deal with lava getting in your way of digging up. what we came here for is obviously Blazeport. And thanks to some cosmic intuition, did I know exactly where the spawner is. If you ever had a question, can spawners spawn when encased in Bedrock? Yes. I thought spawners aren't supposed to spawn when surrounded by blocks, but I guess Bedrock doesn't count for that. But you always could have just mined the one block the spawner is standing on. After now having had a sick, epic-based and red-pilled battle with the Blaze, I made a door. I don't know why I thought this was supposed to be a good strategy, but I did. And after a time far longer than I would ever admit in taking for this, I realized that anyone using a shield in Minecraft is carry and has no skill. I also got enough blaze rods for the full 16 Eyes of Ender you could need at max. All that was missing were Ender pearls. And as you already are in the Nether and it has not one but 3 biomes that spawn Enderman, all we need to do is get some extra cosmic intuition to know where Warped Forest is. Ignore the part where I tried to farm Enderman in the Soul Sand Valley, which has the lowest spawn rate of Endermans of all the 3 biomes that do spawn them. We are now in the Warped Forest. You wouldn't know it as its one defining feature, the warped trees are way above us, but you can see the blue fog in the distance. I did then go sicko mode and mining out a big chunk of 3 high space for Enderman to spawn, but stop the music, as there is no recording for this, so you have to live with seeing what I ended up as. I also made some gold boots while doing this, as the smallest warped forest to have ever been warped. For real. To the left you see the exact border to Nether Waste, and in the back and the right are Crimson Forest. But what also was here was a bastion, so piglins, which means piglin buttering, which means that destroying the gold and not mining the rest way back when now comes to bite me. Oh, and I also found some netherite, which is fucking useless. Spawning in batches of 1 to 3 while needing 4 so that you can make a netherite shovel? Who fucking who for having 2 netherite? At this point did my recording stop once more. Why? Well, my C drive was full. My D drive is bigger than my C drive, so I normally have programs on C and everything else on D, but OBS automatically saves on the C drive, which meant 7 hours of footage had fully filled up my drive. At the very least, did it last for the rest of the Nether, and all you miss was my third cosmic intuition of knowing where the stronghold is and half of the way there. And there is better not a single comment on how in the Nether you move 8 times faster, so you should move in the Nether when you need to dig for a very long way. What I found in that time was an insane aged diamond vein, and then also 2 more veins. That explains the diamonds you may or may not see in my inventory, but I guess mining for 1500 blocks gets you some diamonds eventually. And now cue for the last time the song. Here we are at the final step. There were obstacles and panic attacks and god-tier gaming. But we have finally done it. After 9 hours, give or take, did we reach the stronghold, when every air block up to build height is replaced with bedrock. That leaves only one thing left. Let's find the portal. It really is a pain finding the portal frame naturally, with the only way of knowing if it's there being the silverfish spawner at the top of the staircase and some puddles of lava inside the portal room. So, cosmic intuition. And even with that, did it take a good while for me to figure out where the hell the portal actually was. Imagine doing this, but not even knowing it is there to begin with. And here is now the ultimate obstacle. Now, before you say anything, this does look dire. You can't place the pearls inside the portal frames that aren't adjacent to the staircase. And they also generate free floating, so you also can't dig them free with normal means. That being said, there are abnormal means of removing blocks, and that would be bedrock deletion. There is no way I know of, bar glitching inside the walls with ender pearls to place ice, dying, coming back and glitching in somewhere else to fill the portal frames slowly, to reach the back frames, but there are many different ways of breaking bedrock. I don't know how they go, or if you can even remove bedrock above and besides you, but technically you could in survival fill with frames. Probably. Or you just get absurdly lucky by having all but the front 3 frames pre-filled. I got 0, by the way. I have a 70% loss rate with coin flips every time I check for prolonged times, so I am definitely not the one to be 1 in a billion lucky to get this. So let's assume we broke the bedrock and filled the frames in a legit way. We can now enter the end and win, right? Right? There is a chance that you straight up game over when entering, as there is a chance that you spawn on a floating island next to the end island. And floating island means bedrock cage. The other option is, however, we are inside the end island, and all we need to do is to beat the Ender Dragon. This now is going to become a bit weird. First of all, let's deal with the end crystals. Purge threads won't work in this world, as the Ender Dragon does not purge, or at least not like you imagine it, so without breaking the crystals which you constantly heal. For that do we need to break through the obsidian pillars. They are surrounded by bedrock, so the only way is through. Well, after we found them at least. I am here using creative mode for that, for a particular reason that would make me doing this legit simply waste time for nothing. It is 1 second per end stone, and the only way we get to the pillars is by digging along the former floor. We can be quite literally anywhere, and the end island is massive, so finding all pillars would take a lot of time. And that's only finding them. I did get infinite diamonds on my way to the stronghold, so they will help a lot here. But that is still 9 seconds per obsidian. A more intelligent person would have brought ladders with them, so that you can dig straight up. And here it happened. I was in fact convinced that you could not beat Minecraft in this way. For one reason and one reason only. The Ender Dragon is not reachable. I had quite a long part here going over how this isn't doable, but maybe. That is not needed. The Ender Dragon AI seems to work as follows. Circle around the center at a fixed height, then periodically go above the highest piece of bedrock in the center. This is the main reason why perching is not how you know it, as you can see here. The important part in all of that is that the End Dragon seems to not care if there are blocks. Obviously the damage of breaking End Crystal she heals from is nowhere near enough to beat her, so unless there was a way of engaging in combat would we have no chance of getting damaged other ways. The fact that I got charged here tells us that theoretically you can attack her directly. However, right now you see me attempt this in practice. At first I had to wait absurdly long for her to even get to me, while you have no idea what she even is doing. But once she got here the big problem was to get in hits. I know I only use my fists, but I only wanted to see if the getting damage effect was shown, and I was not successful at all. But this should be doable over a really long time. This is ignoring that you will probably take a lot of damage and would have to heal up after every attempt to damage her. But when I told you that there was a chance to game over when entering the end, I did not only mean the Bedrock cage problem. To see the credits, there's one extra step after beating the Ender Dragon, and that is to get into the final portal. And on the seed I played, that portal is unreachable by normal means. In fact, the end portal does remove all the bedrock directly above it when the Ender Dragon is beaten, so the only thing we need to worry about is if it spawns next to a wall. This is why I couldn't be bothered to do the end normally. The chance for the portal to be in the open is way higher than the chance of being right next to a wall. That means in theory there is a chance, but only on certain seeds. And keep in mind that there already was no chance of getting into the end without exploits, outside from absurd luck. In the case that you are lucky, you still need some exploits to get there ultimately. In the case you wouldn't need to break bedrock, as if you get hold of a mushroom can you break the end portal frames. Unlike the Nether portal does the end portal not break when the structure breaks, but that is still an exploit. But with all of that being said right now, sounds it as if all of this were theoretically possible, when you allow exploits. So let's go back to the premise of all of this. I simply assumed that there would be a block at height 256. Is that even possible? Okay, there are 3 answers for this. No, maybe and yes. Let's start with no. Minecraft has no structure that under any circumstance could ever get to that height. Jungle trees and mansions each are 30 blocks high. Mountains go only up to 150 blocks. So if a jungle tree were to generate on a mountain, that is still off by 76 blocks. Then there's maybe. I seem to remember an IBX Toycat video around the 1.18 update, and how he complained about the current Bedrock mountain generation cutting them off at build limit. If they get cut off at build limit, that means they go to build limit. So if this was the case at some point, it would be possible in Bedrock to do all of this. And now the clear and definite yes. Up until now did we only ever consider normal world generation. But we already replaced air with Bedrock, so why should we use normal world generation? If you go to more world options, you can change the world type. In default, nothing goes over 256. That is however not true for Amplified. It is not a common occurrence, and some get cut off right before it, but you can't find something generating to world build limit, and in that case everything else in this is also valid. So let's do one final sum up of everything. Replace air up to build limit with Bedrock, and we spawned on top of that. There are circumstances where that does not mean every block at 256 would be bedrock, and if we find even one of those, can we dig down into the ground and start gathering materials from below the world. We went into the Nether, and despite the portal being a trap, were we able to just break it and place it into the ground. Finding a fortress is a pain, and finding the blaze spawner equally, but with a lot of time or the locate function, that is completely possible, and therefore getting blaze rods too is possible. Thanks to the Nether also spawning endermen far more frequent than the overworld does, or by finding a bastion getting into trading, is it also not hard getting to ender pearls. Finding the stronghold would be difficult, as you need to dig out a large chunk in the earth to see where the Eye of Ender goes, but you could reach the stronghold eventually. Digging along the stronghold floor, you will eventually find the end portal room, either through the lava only in that room, or by finding stairs. With the help of a 1 in a billion luck, you could also find a portal that has all frames, but the ones bordering the stairs pre-filled to open the end. And with the help of a mushroom could you break the end portal frames to access the portal. If you now are lucky enough to spawn inside the end island, and the credits gate is bordering a wall, are you able to search the obsidian pillars, destroy the crystals, wait for an obscene amount of time to whittle down the ender dragon, and with that you have done it, and beaten the game of Minecraft with every air block being replaced with bedrock. I did not do that. In fact, this world never was filled with bedrock. I simply used the fill function to make it look like that. I also used locate to save time. But if you want to be the one to do it, you have now heard all you need. It is possible. But despite all the cheating I did, not even doing the end, did this take 10 hours. And I feel satisfied in answering this hypothetical with segmented proof. So if you too like this, you should also like this video and subscribe. And not want to do anything specific, only doing what comes to mind, which is apparently a lot of FEH. But I have more ideas floating in my head on this level, and simply need the motivation to doing them.